The answer is basically go to college, work for free for a long time until you get a job. So the number one question that you get asked as a zookeeper is, how do you become a zookeeper? Or how do I become a zookeeper? I went to school for 4 years. I got my bachelor's degree in biology with a focus on evolution and ecology. I did 4 internships before I landed my first part-time job as a zookeeper. 2 of those internships were unpaid internships. The other 2 had a stipend of $1,500. Some people start their journey at a really young age. They start going to zoo camps and they start volunteering at the zoo when they're in middle school. So when I started my first animal care internship the summer before my senior year of college, I felt like I was so behind. I know keepers who volunteered for 11 years before they got their first keeper position. So when I tell you that it's incredibly competitive to get into the animal field, I'm not joking. This is across the board, whether you want to work at a zoo, a conservation facility, or if you want to work at a sanctuary. There are a ton of people who want to work with animals. So my first internship was actually the summer before my senior year of high school. I was paid $1,500 to do a pre-med, pre-vet program with Howard Hughes Medical Institute. It wasn't until the summer before my senior year of college that I actually did my first animal related internship. It was a paid internship and it was called the Collegiate Conservation Program. Basically, me and 10 other girls learned specifics about how to run a conservation organization, how to apply for grants, restoring ecosystems, rehabilitating animals, and also how zoos play a role in that conservation. Before that, I'd only really been exposed to propaganda, which was mostly through PETA campaigns. This really opened my world up to possibility of working at a zoo. So my senior year of college, I actually did my first unpaid internship at a small city-run zoo where I got to work with small mammals like monkeys and foxes, and I also got to work with birds and some reptiles. So when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I landed a unpaid internship with a very large AZA accredited facility. And I was able to work with chimpanzees for the first time. And working with great apes was always a dream of mine. I just had no idea how I was gonna actually fulfill it. Am I gonna be like the next Jane Goodall or Diane Fossey, or am I gonna run my own zoo? Like, how am I gonna work with chimpanzees? It never really clicked until I volunteered for a special project where I got to film chimpanzees for a behavioral research study run by the Chicago Zoological Society. So I spent most of my time watching chimpanzees and filming them for this study. It allowed me to become really close with the keepers that worked at the primate department in that zoo, and it also allowed me to become close with the managers. I think that being able to network and make connections in that manner is ultimately what really helped me land my first keeping position. After my primate internship was over, I was about to start the second half of that primate internship, which was also, you guessed it, unpaid. I actually landed an interview and landed a job as a part-time children's zookeeper at that same AZA zoo. So I started at around $14.20 an hour, working part-time, making sure that kids weren't riding the goats around the children's zoo. And I did that until a position opened up in the primate department of that zoo. I was still working on that study. Yeah, isn't that crazy? I forgot to mention that. While I was working part-time as a zookeeper in the children's zoo, I was also volunteering on my off days to continue this chimpanzee behavioral study. I think that really helped me land my first full-time position in the primate department of the zoo. They said, oh, we're just gonna keep that same salary. And to be fair, I was like, wow, $14.20 an hour. Like, I've never made this much money before. Like, I've only ever worked in retail. The highest I'd made at that time was like $9 an hour. So of course I was like, hell yeah, $14 an hour. Meanwhile, I live in one of the largest cities in America, and I didn't really understand how little $14 an hour was. But that's a common theme that you're gonna see throughout zoos. If you're actually interested in working for zoos, you're gonna see that the pay is like $9 to $11 an hour. If you get into those bigger zoos, you'll start to get between $11 and $18 an hour. And then if you get into union zoos, you'll start to see the $18 to like $26 an hour range. Zookeepers don't make a lot of money. It is a job that you do because you love animals animals and because you're passionate about conservation and education. With that being said, that kind of leads me into the different kinds of animal facilities that you may be working at if you are interested in working with animals. So we have sanctuaries, zoos. Within the zoos, we have city-run zoos, nonprofit zoos, union zoos, all of which are run in very different ways. Every zoo is different. You may also be very interested in working at a conservation organization like a chimpanzee rehabilitation center, or maybe you want to help rehabilitate manatees. You can work at a fish hatchery or a wildlife rehab. So there's all kinds of different animal care facilities that you can work at. But across the board, most of them are not going to pay you a high amount of money. People who work with animals do it because they love animals. You're not going to stuff your pockets. Unless you're working for some roadside zoo that exploits animals. We've gotten into that a little bit with our Why Primates Aren't Pets video, but if you want me to touch on that topic of roadside zoos and people who are making money by working with animals, let me know. We can make a video about that. I said that I got a bachelor's degree in biology with a focus of ecology and evolution. That's a freaking mouthful, dude. Is that what everyone gets a degree in? Absolutely not. I have friends who got degrees in zoology, animal science, primatology, marine ecology. So really, if you decide to go to college and you want to be a zookeeper, focus on whatever degree they have that is the most sciencey and animal related that you can get. I was able to take classes on game birds, mammals, reptiles, and kind of learn about ecosystems and behaviors. That is really the focus when your goal is to be a zookeeper. They do have the zookeeping schools that you can go to where you work at a zoo and learn in a zoo. So if you are like dead set, you know you want to be a zookeeper, that might be the path for you. But honestly, I don't recommend that, because what if 10 years you decide you don't want to be a zookeeper anymore? That kind of really locks you into animal caretaking. Some people want to know if getting a master's degree or a PhD is necessary. I have always advocated against getting a master's degree or a PhD, and that is because I was a zookeeper alongside people who had master's degrees, and we did the same job. They may have made a couple dollars more than me, but it wasn't anything significant. I don't think it makes sense to go to school for an additional 2 or 4 years to get an advanced degree if you're still not going to be able to pay off your college at the end of the day. If you are going to college and it's free, hell yeah, get a master's degree, get a PhD. But if you are paying and you are taking out student loans, I do not recommend getting an advanced degree to be a zookeeper. When you're applying for zookeeping jobs and internships, what looks good is experience. So you really want to focus on internships and volunteering. The education will fall next to it. Nobody's going to see a resume right here that has 10 years of education, no animal experience, and then see this one right here, who got a bachelor's degree and she volunteered for 2 years and did 2 internships. This is going to outweigh this one because the one with internship experience is more valuable than the one who just has textbook experience. Just like with any job, the textbook isn't going to teach you how to handle the actual job. It may tell you how to analyze behavior, or you might learn about the natural history of an animal, but it's not going to tell you about how to manage your time and how to react when an animal is fighting with another animal. So if your main goal is to become a zookeeper, I don't recommend going that extra mile. If you want to become a manager or a curator after you've been a zookeeper, that's where those advanced degrees might come in handy. These days, it's very typical to see curators who have those advanced degrees. Oftentimes, those that are curators and supervisors aren't going to be working hands-on with the animals as much as somebody who is a keeper. With that being said, there are tons of keepers out there who never even went to college and who have made a career in the field. This has become less common as more and more people have degrees. So it will be really hard for you to get a job at a large AZA facility without a degree. But I'm not saying that you can't get a job at maybe a smaller local zoo without a degree. It's entirely possible. I I know people who were keepers that had never been to college before, but it's not something that I would bank on. Additionally, if you are seeking to kind of move up in the field and get those management and curator positions, I've already talked about how competitive it is to be a zookeeper. It's even more competitive to start getting those raises and to start advancing position. And that's because people, once they get into the field, they often don't leave. A lot of keepers will stay at the same facility for 10 to 25 years. And that can make it really hard for younger keepers to move up and obtain those senior keeper and management and curator positions. Like I said, it's really competitive and they typically are hiring within. Sometimes they'll hire from other zoos. Just keep that in mind, that the competition doesn't ever go away. And there's always somebody that's there who wants to be a keeper that can easily fill a position. If you have any questions about zoos or sanctuaries, specific animals, or behind the scenes zoo stuff, subscribe and I'll see you next time.